99% of players in the game of Valorant that are under the rank of Immortal do not know how to peek angles the right way. In this video, not only am I going to show you exactly what kind of peek you need to use for basically every single angle that you peek in the game, but also how to do the right peeking methods. By the end of this video, I promise that you are literally going to leave as a completely different player that's going to be peeking angles in a way that you've never peeked angles before. Let's start off with the most basic method of peeking, which is the silent peek. Now imagine your team is coming up mid and you have to clear all of these angles that are waiting for you. But of course, you don't want to get spotted in the process. What you're going to use is called a silent peek, where you silently clear all of these angles one by one without making a single step. Now it's important to note that when you are doing this silent peek, you're not going to be holding your shift key. You will completely let go of your shift key and then you isolate angles by moving within the time frame that is available for you to strafe in without making a single step. I'm going to shoot 2 points on this block right here, and I'm going to strafe from here to here without making a single step. Notice how I just did it, and I made 0 steps. That means that anytime you're moving within this little time frame window here, you can essentially peek a ton of different angles and not make a single step while doing so. This is called the silent peek, otherwise known as the one-step peek. However, going back to my initial demonstration, although you technically could use silent peeking here too if you want to, it's much better to actually jump spot areas that have verticality added to them. So for example, if someone's holding you, they could be holding you from here, or they could be holding you from up here. In this specific scenario, jump spotting to spot this out is one really good method, but if you have to be quiet and you're still trying to clear these angles quietly, another really good technique to use is called jiggle peeking. The goal of jiggle peeking is to get information without having to commit to the fight. And if you get really good at it, you can even get some shots off before you cancel out the jiggle peek. You get really good at shooting in between your strafes, then you can even pair jiggle peeking with getting some shots off and making the opponents weak the moment that you spot them. The second instance in which I recommend to my students to use jiggle peeking is whenever they're taking a gunfight that they're not comfortable winning. So for example, maybe you have good recollection and you remember that every time you swing this angle here, for some reason, you just can't get this kill. In this scenario, you can just learn to jiggle peek it instead and get some shots off like this, and then switch up your position, get some shots off, switch up your position, and just kind of do the same thing. So now instead of full committing to a gunfight that you have a history of losing, you now just jiggle peek those gunfights and you're automatically going to have a 10 times higher chance of actually getting the kill. The next thing I want to talk about is the two-step peek. So for example, instead of walking up to an angle and using a one-step peek or a silent peek for angles that are far away, you typically want to use the two-step peek. The reason why we want to use a two-step peek is because the velocity of your character changes based on how many steps you take prior to peeking the angle. So for example, if I were to walk up to the angle and just take a one-step peek, I'm peeking at a very slow velocity, and what peeking at a slow velocity does is it makes it very easy for whoever is holding you to get a free kill. Now let's say I use a two-step peek where I start 2 steps behind the angle and I swing with maximum velocity. Notice how much faster a two-step peek is versus just a one-step peek. Now let's talk about how you can gain information using a silent jump spot. Yes, this counts as a peek because you're technically peeking into the enemies, but you're not making any noise. So first, let me put my volume up for this so you guys can see how this works. And you have to make sure that you're behind some sort of object that is not spammable. You do not want to be behind this thing because you're just going to get instantly spammed. You want to be behind this because you can spam or shoot through it. Also, good thing to know, because a lot of my students didn't know this initially, is that how to tell if something's spammable or not spammable is that whenever you shoot here, you'll notice that the shots are it's like the opacity of the bullet holes are just very, very low. If you notice that anywhere, for example here, the opacity is very, very high. It's very, very dark. Therefore, you can shoot through this wall. But if I shoot here, the opacity is very, very low. That is how you tell whether or not your bullets are either going through or not going through. So to give like another example here, notice these bullets are going through, right? Why? Because it's so much darker. If it's closer to black than it is to gray, then you can shoot through it. But if it's closer to gray than it is to black, then again, you cannot shoot through it. So how we're going to do this is we're going to start off by holding our crouch key, and then once you're crouching behind the object that you want to silent jump spot, you're then going to go ahead and press your spacebar to jump up, and then you're going to hold your shift key right after. And then right when you do this, you're going to go ahead and go back into an instant crouch and just repeat the process. So again, crouch, jump, shift, crouch, jump, shift, crouch, jump, shift. Now it's also good to note that you can still do this without holding your shift key, but I like to do it just because it gives you that reassurance. Again, here you'll notice I made some noise, but sometimes you can definitely do it without holding your shift key. Let me actually do it right now. I'm only crouching, jump, let go, and then crouch again, jump, let go, crouch again, jump, let go. So again, you can do it without holding your shift key, but holding your shift key just kind of removes any sort of possible errors from it. So I do still recommend just to be on the safe side. So now let's say you're in a 1 versus 1, you know the player is right here, and you are walking up from point A to point B. What this essentially means is that you are being forced to scale vertically for some reason. I'm just using it for a hypothetical in this specific scenario so that I can get my point across. So let's say that you are forced to walk up vertically like this, right? How do we want to actually do this the right way? First thing you want to understand is that you never ever want to peek an angle holding your shift key. What that means is you never want to peek like this. If you're holding your shift key and peeking like this, you're already putting yourself at risk of just basically being instantly taken out. Instead, what we want to do is when we're forced to hold our shift key and walk up in a straight line, instead of doing that, we want to use a method of peeking that I like to call the Euro step. How this method of peeking works is we just tap WD, WA, WD, WA, WD, WA, WD, WA. So notice I'm scaling forward, I'm not making any noise, but I'm also able to scale forward in a very I guess unpredictable way. So when someone peeks into you, you're already strafing left side or right side, and you become a much harder and unique target to hit, which makes it so much easier for you to just instantly get back into your movement and finish the kill. Alright guys, now before I drop this final piece of advice that is probably going to change the entire way you play Valorant, I just want to say, if you've been hard stuck for a while now in a lower rank, or you've just been struggling to win your games and you don't know what's going on or how to stop the cycle, I have been a Valorant coach for over 3 years now, and I've helped countless players reach Immortal and beyond. I offer 2 different coaching programs. One is called the Training Arc Society, and the other is called the Immortal Edge program. Both programs are very high end, and you do get personalized access to me, coaching sessions, VOD reviews, access to all my guides, all my routines, literally everything you need to reach Immortal and beyond. So if you are interested in getting coached by me personally, all you have to do is click the link at the top of the description or the pinned comment and find out what coaching program is the best fit for you. And of course, I hope to see you inside of the society, ranking up alongside all of my other amazing students. Okay, and now for the final tip, and probably the most important one. Anytime you expose yourself to an angle in the game of Valorant and the opponent knows exactly where you are. So for example, let's take here for example, let's say that you expose yourself from back here initially. Okay, you peeked the angle, he saw you, you got some shots off, whatever. At this point here, you never want to re-swing the angle the exact same way that you swing the first time. So instead of re-swinging like this after you got some shots off and you were able to tuck, we want to get closer to the angle and then re-swing like this and finish off the kill. Likewise, if we initially peeked close to the angle and we got some shots off and then we tucked, we want to re-swing from further away, because again, you want to create variability in the distance that you're peeking in, so that way their crosshair placement is no longer holding for the right swing. Okay guys, that is it for this video. I hope you guys found a lot of value out of it, and as always, all my coaching stuff is in the pinned comment or the top of the description, and of course I hope to see you guys inside of the society.